Hello, my name is Ed O'Brien, and today I will be discussing the concept of identity in relation to Indigenous Australians. I will be exploring this important concept via the art form of traditional dancing, performed by the famous Australian actor and artist David Gulpilil in the film Three Dances. Identity can be viewed as the collection of unique qualities, practices, and beliefs shared by a society. One such practice is dance, which seems to be almost ubiquitous throughout all human cultures. According to Dunphy and Ware, dance often played a vital role in celebrations of events such as harvests, hunts, wars, birth, puberty, courtship, marriage, and death. This is especially true amongst Indigenous Australians, where dance participation not only contributes towards cultural cohesion, but towards the overall quality of life of its participants. Through music and dance, Aboriginals are able to sustain healthy intergenerational relationships and pass on their knowledge and wisdom to younger generations. Kinship, community, spirituality, and the connection to one's land and ancestors are central components of the ritual. Without such rituals, identity can be lost, as has been the case throughout modern history. Policies such as assimilation and integration systematically separated Aboriginals from their families and stripped them of their native identities, forcing them to behave according to the standards of white Australians. Despite the richness of Indigenous culture, policies such as these and the discriminatory attitudes that led to them have resulted in traditional Aboriginal culture and knowledge being all but erased from contemporary media and thought. Instead, they have been replaced with bigoted stereotypes and misinformed views on Indigenous life before the arrival of Europeans. Mainstream media often depicts Aboriginals as uneducated, drunken primitives, and their culture is either ignored or denied in favour of the narrative of higher European civilization. This is why David Gulpilil stands out as such an important figure. As seen in this film, Gulpilil is performing one of three dances, this one being the emu, dressed in the traditional ritual paint and attire of his people, the Yolngu. Raised in Arnhem Land, Gulpilil was taught many of the skills, knowledge, and expertise of his people, and was given the responsibility of caring for the land, his family, and participating in ceremonies such as this. Gulpilil incorporated this art form and its cultural significance into many of his characters on film. By introducing audiences to these traditional practices and positive portrayals of Indigenous people, Gulpilil was able to break down the stigma surrounding his people and allay the previously degrading and bigoted representations of Aboriginals in film. He effectively used dance to break down cultural divides and allow people to see and experience his culture as it genuinely is, not as a disrespectful stereotype. This is significant, as negative portrayals of one's own people or culture in media can have devastating effects on self-image and their personal identity. These negative stereotypes and misconceptions can become internalized by the group being marginalized, and as a result, many Aboriginals feel the need to either overemphasize their Indigenous identity or assimilate into more Western modes of being, suppressing whom they feel to be their true selves. As Sarah explains, Aboriginal Australia must not be dominated by mainstream Australia's perception of who we are. We must define who we are. And David Gulpilil did just that, and became a positive role model for many whom felt ostracised and removed from their identity as Indigenous Australians. A lack of identity, or positive identity at that, can be quite troubling for one's personal development. Their sense of belonging and self-image may suffer. We, as educators, thus have a duty to ensure that all cultures and backgrounds are treated with the respect that they deserve, and that our students feel included and their backgrounds are understood and appreciated. We must work towards creating a supportive learning environment where no person or culture is misrepresented or caricatured. Positive role models such as Gulpilil give young Indigenous people an example of how to be true to themselves and how to cultivate and express a positive identity, in spite of the stereotypes and bigoted representations often shown in the media. This is perhaps a first step towards overcoming some of the issues still present today that Aboriginals face. I hope you enjoyed this presentation and have learned something of value from the works of David Gulpilil, as I have.